having over a decade of working in senior human resource positions, you've seen as one of the pioneers of Agile HR. So, how did you discover Agile and what attracted you towards it?
So one thing that Agile represents for organizations and as well as HR is a new way of working. And so I had worked for a number of years in sort of high senior HR roles. And I was starting to recognize a need to work differently. So business is starting to transform, and I think there's nothing like a pandemic to demonstrate the need as to why to work agile. So for quite a while, business was starting to go, okay, we need to be more responsive, we need to be more customer focused, we need to be more collaborative, we need to innovate. And you've got businesses at lots of different stages of that journey. So that was starting to happen. And then within business, there was a need, I felt, for HR processes to get back to being both about the human, but also about what the business was trying to achieve. So I always talk about a story about, so I was in a large senior HR role, and we were using a 25 box matrix to assess talent, which is just a huge process, and we were collecting all this data, but then we didn't really do that much with the information, and it wasn't really connecting through to great decisions around developing people and building great talent. So I kind of left that role a bit disheartened with where HR was at. And I was fortunate to work with a company that was very agile. So they were very much, they were a startup originally, they had grown bigger, and most of their teams in the tech areas were still working very agile. And I was just challenged to work really differently. I was challenged to work more evidence-based. I was challenged to experiment, test, and learn, which are all these themes of Agile. And what came out of that is I found that it was actually a much better way to create HR solutions. So, because you created it with other people, you built the change together, and you tested it. And so you listen to feedback. Does this work? Does this not? If it doesn't, then you don't do it, so you build the solution together. And that's this sort of iterative way of working. But this is also how business is working now. So that this is what you've got to do to build better products for your customers. And this is why some businesses have been very successful using this approach. So I realized that HR needed to update. We needed to update the way we worked so we could get better results, but also we needed to update just HR way, processes to support the business in a new way as well. So that's kind of what led me to this space. But I discovered it a number of years ago. And to be honest, for quite a while, people didn't really know what I was talking about when I talked about Agile HR. So it's what happens. But it's very interesting particularly now that we've had the pandemic. It seems that the whole profession is sort of understanding what it means now and the need to change.
Awesome. And I think it's very good intro to my next question. So besides changing your professional life, did Agile influence you personally as well? And how did it change you, this Agile way of working in your personal life?
Yeah, definitely. I think, so a lot of people in the Agile world talk about that Agile is a kind of a way, a sense of being, a way, and is an all life experience. So definitely it changes your outlook. So there's little things like sometimes you work too long on trying to find the perfect solution, where actually you should just start somewhere, give it a go, and learn from that, to then build it. And so you can do that a lot in your personal life. You can overthink it, and try and plan it all out, but it's not until you give it a go do you realize what's going to work and what doesn't. I think I've got more open to the concept of experimentation just generally in that sense, that test and learn. But also there's a way of working in Agile, which is about visualizing your work and prioritizing what you do based on value. And I even say to people, a great way to start with Agile is using a personal Kanban. So Kanban is about visualizing your work and knowing what's the most important thing to work on at any one stage and why, and then not overcommitting. So saying, how much work do I have in progress? What do you think I could get done today, kind of thing, and what can I commit to? And that's a really interesting thing. And I still totally overcommit. I think I can get way too much work done. But it's very interesting to start to bring in those methods into your own ways of working, just on a personal level, because it gives you an idea that there is so much that you want to try and get done in your life, whether it's personal life, work, things you need to do with the family, and you're never going to get all of it done. So by focusing on one thing and doing it well and getting that through to the done column, then you can have a bit of a sense of achievement around it. And also there's all these other things that actually you're probably just not going to get to, and that's okay. So it gives you a little bit better way of managing, I suppose, everyday life. So it does. Agile influences kind of everything in many ways. Yeah.
Thanks. So when you mentioned personal Kanban, it reminded me of a book by
Yeah.
Jim Benson. And you're also a co-author of now famous book, Agile HR, Deliver Value in a Changing World of Work. So who is this book intended for? And what would be the one major takeaway if you had to choose one?
So the book is intended for HR professionals, professionals that work in learning and development, organizational development, organizational design, change management. So everyone that works in that sort of people and culture area. And it was intended to be very practical. So I get good feedback that it's very toolkit based. There's lots in there that people can go and apply immediately to their everyday scenarios and roles. And that's the way we intended it to be. The idea is, if I was starting again and I was starting with Agile HR, what I needed a book to help me do that. And so this is meant to be that book. So that was the intention. In terms of taking one thing away, I would say that it is understanding the problem you're trying to solve. So in the world of HR, there's huge big topics that we try to tackle. So we go, well, we're focusing on well-being, but what does well-being mean? Like, that's such a big, complex topic. Or we're building a hybrid office for the future of work. That's huge. We're developing leaders for roles of the future that we don't know yet. All of these topics are really, really big and really complex. And Agile is about helping you break that down and defining what is the problem you're trying to solve for your business or your organization, and then going after that. And by being much more focused on the problem you're trying to solve, you're much more likely to be able to demonstrate value and also be able to deliver more tangible, practical things. And it will just help our profession work in a much better way, because it kind of flows into all these different ways of working if you start focusing on the problem. So that's the thing. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Why you're doing it? And focus on that one thing first and get that done.
Awesome. So that's also already a bit of an answer for my next question. But
Okay, yeah.
what would be the most important thing for HR to do, or where to start to successfully embrace this agile transformation?
Yeah, look, I think a word of warning at this stage is that agile HR is very contextual. So your context will influence your approach. So if you are working at a small startup that's, been agile from word go, and there's a very different kind of culture and values, then you're probably going to be able to do a lot more and maybe work in a different way at a faster pace. If you're working in a more traditional company, more hierarchical, more bureaucratic, and there's a bit more of a legacy, then the changes might be a bit slower. You might need to kind of, build change over time. So your context definitely influences your approach. So I think it's important to be very clear about your context and just be quite realistic about it. Where do I start and why?
Mm.
But leading on from that is, yeah, and leading on from what I just said before, is these things. So, visualization of work. What work do we have on? What's our people strategy? What are we trying to achieve? And if you have some of these really big topics, then what's the problem that we need to solve for the business? And why is that important to solve? And what's the value that we can demonstrate if we solve the problem? And then break that down into very realistic pieces of work. And Agile's about bringing in a new cadence, a new cycle of work. So you say, okay, we're going to plan, do, review, adapt. And so you go, so this month we're going to aim to deliver these things for these reasons. And then you give it a go, and then you review it. How did that go? Did it work? What feedback did we get? What data do we have to demonstrate if we achieved our value? And then you do a retrospective around how do we improve, and then take an improvement into the next cycle of work. And just by working in this new way, this new cadence, you continuously improve, and it helps you keep breaking the work down into very realistic, achievable slices of value. And it means that we start delivering kind of products and services in the organization like the business is doing for the end customer. So we start to build a new way of working for our organization. So I think that's a key place to start. Visualization of work, getting a sense of what you've got on, what's the problems to solve, and then feeding off that. Agile is very much about multifunctional teams, multi-skilled teams, because the idea is if you have a complex problem, you can't solve it by yourself. You need diversity of thought, diversity of thinking. In HR, we've been these single topic owners for a long time. So I would look after learning, someone else looks after recruitment, another person looks after reward. But all the problems we're trying to solve needs everyone in the team together to get it done. So that's the other thing, is how do we start working much more as a multifunctional team in HR and actually come together and solve the problem together rather than just owning different pieces of work. And it sounds really straightforward, but actually that's a big challenge for HR because we've never worked like that before. We've been quite siloed. So that is the other next piece, is what's the problem? Why we need to solve it, what's the value, and now how do we structure ourselves differently to go and solve that problem for the business.
Awesome. So Agile is also something that is typically tied to tech teams.
Mm-hmm.
Agile Manifesto for software development started like in 2001. However, more and more non-tech teams are moving toward the Agile way of working. Mm-hmm. So what makes Agile so useful in all these contexts?
Yeah, that's what context is. Yeah. So what it is that, so the Agile mindset is about putting your customer in the heart of what you're doing, and then going, okay, I'm going to incrementally, so bit by bit, slice by slice, deliver value to that customer. So what's happening is that everywhere in business, you're trying to do that. Everyone's talking about, oh, we need to be more customer centric. We need to innovate. We need to deliver value faster. We need to be more collaborative. We need to be able to innovate. We realize that we need to be more joined up. So more this end-to-end accountability, so you can deliver value through to that customer. We're knowing that the successful companies are building a whole customer experience in a more holistic way. So you've got, I talk about, Netflix has changed the way that we watch television. It's a totally different experience. Tesla's changing how we drive cars. And these companies are coming into the market, not just to disrupt, but they're thinking about how to do it fundamentally different. So the market is more complex, there's more uncertainty, and there's more disruption. So everyone is trying to find the answers to all of these problems. And what it is that Agile gives you a way to try and find those answers. And it is a way to be more collaborative. It is a way to be more responsive to the customer. And it's based on the idea of teams collaborating in a network. And a network allows you to move faster, allows you to get the job done quicker, because you can you can actually answer the problem then and there. And that's much faster than this old kind of traditional way of going up the hierarchy, back down for decisions. You can make more real-time decisions that are on the ground where the customer is. So it's just natural, I think, that people are going to more agile ways of working to try and solve these problems. I think the danger is when we see that, so agile gives you a way to answer the problems. It's not the answer itself. And there's actually a lot of different things that sit in the agile space. So there's sort of not one way of doing it. And so there's a set of values, some core values that it's about embracing, but then you've got to find out how this looks in for your own culture and your own organization. So I think the key thing is don't see it as something you just go and take from one place and then just implement, because that's not agile. It's about kind of evolving a new way of working over time in answer and response to the changes going around us in the marketplace. Yeah. So I think it's quite natural. But what's interesting is that the manifesto, and it's 20 years old this month, it does feel a bit techie the way that it's written. So there is a need to translate it into different parts of the business. So you need to help HR people understand what it means for them. So the first value is, interactions and individuals over processes and tools. So for HR, that's about people before process. How do we build solutions that are more human-centric, that are about our employees, that help delight them, help make their job easier, before we just go and write the policy or design the process. So so in each part of the business, you need to help them understand how does it look for them.
Thanks. So besides tech and non-tech, Agile is also applicable to large and small organizations, like from startups to huge corporations. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the benefits of being large or small, and what are some of the challenges when you're trying to transform your organization?
So the glory of having a smaller organization is that it's generally easier to start something new, isn't it? Because you're all in it together, you all know each other, you've got those personal connections. Generally, you can be a smaller group of teams, and you can really kind of go after things together. So I would say that, being a smaller organization can have some advantages of bringing in Agile, because Agile is about small teams collaborating together. And so that naturally works in a smaller organization. Once you're bigger, there's more teams, there's more connecting points. And so that change can just have a very different feel to it. If you then bring in the legacy of where that organization has been. So if you're a smaller organization, you may not have had so many years of history behind you. So there might be less legacy of how you worked before to then need to change. So a lot of agile ways of working for big companies is often letting go of these very traditional ways that you've worked, that relates to, planning everything up front, having very set roles and rigid kind of functions, needing to go through certain processes to make decisions. All of that kind of slows you down, but it also can be blockers to working in an agile way. So the danger the kind of problem, I suppose, for larger organizations is often there's more legacy to break down. There's more people involved. And so the question is, where do you start? Where do you start with your agile transformation? And why should you start there? If you only start in one place, does that create an us and them, and how do you build it over time? And how do you make it a sustainable change that's kind of going to last? So I think that's the challenge for larger organizations. But the flip side is that sometimes the larger organizations have more reasons to change. So their market is disrupting, they're under threat, they really need to innovate to stay in the game. And so Agile is very needed for them to achieve that. So I think it's size and scale can just add complexity to any kind of transformation.
Great. And my final question would be for the younger people who are not new only to Agile HR, but to HR at all. So, what would be your advices for someone starting their career in human resources?
Don't even think about learning it in the traditional way. Just start like, so forget about. So what I find really interesting is that, so like the organizations we've just been talking about, HR profession is now made up of people that have worked for a number of years in the more traditional way, and want to change, people that are maybe still working like that. And then there's a whole new bunch of people that have come into HR, maybe from another part of the business, or maybe from working agile, or just, as you said, a young and new, and they don't have any of that legacy, and that's awesome. And so I would encourage them just to embrace the new way of working from word go. And so that's thinking about, how do you build the user experience of work? How do you look at employee experience like a customer journey that's, full of moments that matter, that you need to, if you go in and make those moments really great for people, and you help their job be easier, then you will see them be really successful. They'll love the company, they'll love what's going on, and they'll give you the best work. And so if we start having that kind of agile product development mindset from word go in our HR teams, we would just build a whole different approach to how we do HR. So I would just tell them to start with, well, what's the problem? What's the products and services that you people need? Go about it, build it, think like the business, go and build solutions for your people, like your business build solutions for the customer, and you'll get a much different result. And the big thing is, I think the future of HR is having a very diverse mix of skills and people. So people with marketing background, people from design, people from tech, people from learning. And this is how we'll build a much more multifunctional approach to what we're doing. And so I encourage young people to also get experience in other parts of the business and bring that into HR. Because now marketing skills, digital skills, design skills, they are all so central to building a more, more tech-based, more digital, more kind of, lightweight and user-friendly solution of people practices. So yeah, so don't worry about doing the traditional learning. Just get in there and get started.